My guest is Peter Kirsanow, author of Target Omega. Also has a sequel called Second Strike. He practices and teaches law, longtime member of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. Peter, what is your opinion of these protests going on right now in the streets?
It's depressing. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on in the United States of America. My own view is that, look, we need to do whatever we can to make sure that we get rid of cops that are not doing the job properly, who are being abusive, engaged in brutality. I'm all for reforming that, but the fact of the matter is that the current narrative is not supported by fact. And the current narrative, unfortunately, is driving much of, look, you can peacefully protest, that's fine, but what's going on here is we're having rioting and looting and people being killed, although that's not being displayed on major media, but tons and tons of property damage, and the divisiveness is broad as has ever been in my lifetime. It's a horrible atmosphere right now, and it's being driven by a false narrative. The narrative is that, blacks are being disproportionately hunted down and shot by cops, and that racist whites are doing the same, as we saw in the awful Ahmaud Arbery video. Those things, I've not heard one person who said that what happened to George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery was a good thing. Everybody's, gotten universal condemnation, and in addition to that, these individuals have been arrested. The cops were fired. They are going to be prosecuted. So the system is working in that regard. Yet we have got massive demonstrations. Many of those demonstrations have turned out to be violent. Yet the narrative that is fostering the rioting and the looting and the general discord is completely false. That is that if you take a look at the actual numbers, and I've looked at the numbers, many of us have, and I know you have too, Larry. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years on the Civil Rights Commission. We've got the data. It is not difficult to find, and it's in multiple places. And the fact is that if you look at the stats, blacks are actually slightly less likely to be shot by cops than are white suspects similarly situated. There have been several studies on this. Maybe the most notable one is the Harvard study, where the researcher, Roland Fryer, who's also black, fully expected, from everything I understand, I don't know him, but I've read accounts of his study, fully expected that what he was going to find pursuant to his data was that it would support the narrative that blacks are being disproportionately shot by cops. And the data showed that's not true. Now, it wasn't overwhelming. There was only a slight number of more whites being shot than blacks by cops. But there are other studies. The National Academy of Science, I believe, is the study that has whites shot at a twice greater rate than blacks similarly situated. And there are other studies similar to that. And the data with respect to black involvement in crime shows that the number of blacks shot by cops is actually far less than one would expect, given black involvement in the sort of crimes that would involve a violent police confrontation, such as murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. And it's by a huge measure. It's unfortunate that the media, many of our politicians, don't get this stuff out. There's a political imperative to fan the flames. It's despicable what our media and many politicians are doing, and I also include in that the supine politicians, meaning some Republicans who know better but are deathly afraid to correct the record for whatever reason, maybe because they're not articulate enough to marshal the resources, the data, to explain what's going on. But this is a time for clarity. It's not a time for cowardice. I know you've been on this, Larry. Some other people have been. We want the nation to heal. Very few people in the United States of America, it's no longer 1965 Alabama, thank goodness, or Selma, Alabama. But very few people in America, except the real loons out there, want any kind of racial division.
Peter, let's take a break right here, and then when we come back, I want to ask you about this move on the part of Democrats to repeal Proposition 209 so that race and gender become factors in the areas of hiring, contracting, and in college admissions.